Welcome, wayward souls. The cottage had once been warm with laughter, but now ivy strangled its chimney and moss swallowed its doorstep. Windows blinked green with creeping tendrils. No one remembered who last lived there, but the vines did, and they were still waiting. The house waited for her, not with warmth nor welcome, but with a silence so thick it pressed against the skin like damp velvet. Eleanor Vexley stepped through the iron gate, her boots crunching over petals long dead. The garden had gone wild in her absence, or perhaps it had always been this way. Eleanor paused at the threshold, key trembling in her hand. The brass was cold, as if the house itself recoiled from her touch. She hadn't seen her Aunt Lillian in years. Not since the falling out. Not since the letters stopped. But the will was clear. The house was hers now. A single raven feather lay on the doorstep, slick with dew. She pocketed it without thinking. Inside, the air was stale with dust and something sweeter. Rotting roses, maybe. Vines curled along the wallpaper, black and glossy, like veins beneath pale skin. She blinked hard, thinking to herself, had they always been there? The grandfather clock in the hall had stopped at 3:17, the same time her mother died years ago. Eleanor stared at it for a moment, then turned her face away. She set down her suitcase in the front hall. The chandelier above swayed gently, though no wind stirred. Eleanor told herself it was just settling. Old houses did that. They creaked. They settled. On the mantel, a porcelain figurine of a mourning woman stood cloaked in dust. Her face was cracked. Eleanor reached out and then withdrew her hand, and the figurine seemed to watch her anyway. She lit a candle, its flame flickering violently, casting long shadows that danced like limbs, and the vines twitched. That night, the house did not sleep, and nor did Eleanor. Grief is a restless thing. It paces the halls, it whispers through keyholes, and in the Vexley house, it had roots. Eleanor lay in the bedroom upstairs, the one her aunt had used. The sheets smelled faintly of lavender and mildew. Moonlight spilled through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns across the floor, like spiderwebs spun from bone. The vines were here too, curled around the bedpost. She told herself it was just a trick of the light. And at 3:17, the grandfather clock chimed once. Eleanor got herself out of bed, wandered the house, candle in hand. The flame guttered as she passed the cellar door. Something behind it shifted, soft like fabric dragged across stone. She came across a study, and on the leather-bound desk she found a journal. Cracked, aged cover. It lay atop a stack of yellowed papers, and the initials LV were etched into the cover. Eleanor hesitated before opening it. The handwriting was her aunt's, elegant, slanted, and unravelling toward the end. The vine listens. It feeds on sorrow. I have given it mine, and it grows, but it is never sated. It bloomed after Harold died, black blossoms slick with dew. I buried them in the cellar. I think it remembers. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat and she flipped to the final page. If you find this, do not weep. It will hear you. She closed the journal and the candle snuffed out. Grief is not passive. It is a summoning. And in the Vexley house, it summoned something that had been waiting. Morning came grey and reluctant. Eleanor brewed tea in the kitchen, the kettle shrieking like a warning. She hadn't slept. The journal sat beside her, pages now marked with dried petals, black, brittle and unfamiliar. She stepped into the conservatory. It had once been beautiful, with iron arches, glass panels and rows of planters that were now choked with dust and decay. But the vine thrived here. It had spread across the walls, coiled around the beams and bloomed. The blossoms were almost obsidian. Not purple, not black, but obsidian, and wet with dew that smelled faintly of salt and rust. Eleanor reached out and the vine moved, but it didn't recoil. It leaned towards her, curling around her wrist like a cat seeking warmth. Her breath hitched and the air grew heavy, and she whispered, "I miss you." The vine pulsed and a bloom opened slowly, deliberately, and inside was a memory. She saw her aunt kneeling in the conservatory, tears streaking her face. The vine wrapped around her shoulders like a shawl, and she was talking to it, feeding it. Eleanor staggered backwards and the bloom closed. The vine had heard her. Every house has a wound. The cellar was Vexley's, and Eleanor was about to tear off the bandage. The cellar door had remained closed for years. Eleanor knew this. Her aunt had spoken of it only once. She said some grief must be buried. But the journal had mentioned it, and the vine had gestured towards it, and Eleanor's own sorrow had begun to bloom. She opened the door, and the stairs groaned beneath her weight. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, flickering like a dying star. The vine was here too. It had burrowed into the stone walls, split the floorboards, and formed a nest in the far corner, thick and tangled, almost breathing. Eleanor stepped closer, and half buried in the vine's roots was a box, wooden, carved with symbols that she didn't recognize. She knelt and pushed away the petals, reaching for the box, and inside, a lock of hair, a photograph of her aunt and a man, Harold, smiling beside the conservatory. A note written in the same slanted handwriting. It took him gently. I asked it to. I didn't know it would remember. The vine shuddered and Eleanor felt it in her spine. It wasn't angry, it was hungry. She whispered, "What do you want?" The vine opened a bloom, and inside, her own face, twisted with grief, standing over a fresh grave. Grief is a currency, and Eleanor had been spending it freely, but the vine was not a passive collector, it was a lender, and debts must be paid. Eleanor sat in the study, the journal open beside her. The vine had grown bolder, its tendrils now reached into every room, curling around doorknobs, threading through keyholes. She traced the final entry again. "If you find this, do not weep, it will hear you." But she had wept, and it heard her. A knock came at the door. Startled, Eleanor opened it to find a woman, mid-60s, sharp eyes. She introduced herself as Dr. Lysandra Vale, a botanist and folklore archivist, and friend of her aunt. "I knew your aunt. She asked me to come if the vine ever bloomed again," she said. Eleanor let her in, not knowing what else could be done. Dr. Vale examined the vine, her expression unreadable. "It's not a plant," she said. "It's a mnemonic parasite. It feeds on memory, grief, and identity. And it doesn't just grow, it rewrites." Eleanor's stomach turned. Dr. Vale nodded. "It's been changing you. Slowly. You'll forget who you were. It will replace your sorrow with its own. That's the bargain." Eleanor staggered backwards, her hands trembling. She tried to recall her mother's face, her childhood bedroom, her own voice, but everything was gone. The vine pulsed. Dr. Vale stepped closer. "There's one way to stop it, but it's not painless." She opened her satchel and pulled out a vial, thick crimson liquid. "Your aunt made this, a severing agent, but it requires sacrifice." Eleanor stared at the vial, and behind her, the vine bloomed again. Inside, a memory she didn't recognize. A child laughing. A name she didn't know. Some bargains are written in blood, others in silence. But the vine offered Eleanor something older than both. Belonging. Eleanor held the vial in her palm. It pulsed with heat as if aware of the choice before her. Dr. Vale watched on silently, her eyes heavy with warning. But the vine moved. It slithered across the floor, coiling around Eleanor's ankles. Not tightly, not threateningly. Familiar. Like a lover's hand or a child's grip. A bloom opened at her feet. Inside, her aunt's voice, soft and clear. I tried to sever it, I failed, but I saw what it could be. Not a parasite, a sanctuary. Another bloomed open, and inside Eleanor herself, standing in the conservatory, radiant, calm, the house alive with blossoms, her grief gone, not buried but transformed. And the vine whispered, not in words but in feeling. It offered her a counter bargain. Keep the memories it had taken. Let it feed, but only on what she chose to give. And in return, clarity, peace, and a bond deeper than blood. Dr. Vale stepped forward and said, "It's lying. It always lies. Don't believe a word it has to tell you." Eleanor wasn't sure. The vine had shown her something beautiful, something possible. She asked aloud, "What do I have to give?" The vine bloomed once more, and inside a single image. Dr. Vale, weeping in the cellar, clutching a photograph. Her grief untouched, her memories intact, and Eleanor understood. The vine didn't want her past, wanted someone else's. Grief is a garden. You choose what to bury and what to grow and what to feed. But in the Vexley house, the soil remembers everything. Eleanor stood between two forces. In one hand, the vial, her aunt's severing agent, a promise of freedom through pain, and in the other, the vine, offering peace and clarity and power at a cost. Dr. Vale pleaded with her. "You're not the first it's tempted. It feeds on your empathy. It makes you believe." Eleanor turned to the vine and it bloomed again. Inside, her aunt, smiling, surrounded by obsidian blossoms. Her eyes were clear and her voice echoed, "I gave it, Harold. I gave it myself, but I kept you safe." Eleanor's breath caught. "You knew I'd come." And the vine pulsed again, offering her a choice. Take the vial, sever the bond, lose the memories it holds, risk forgetting her aunt, her grief, herself, or accept the counter bargain. Let the vine feed, not on her but on Dr. Vale. Her sorrow was deep, untouched and ripe. Eleanor looked at the photograph in the box, the one of her aunt and Harold. She remembered the laughter and the warmth, and she remembered the pain. And she whispered, "I just want to remember." And the vine opened one final bloom, and inside was a future. Eleanor, ageless, tending the conservatory. Visitors came, drawn by the house's strange beauty, and they left lighter, emptier. But she remained, keeper of grief, gardener of memory. And she turned to Dr. Vale. She chose. Some houses are built with brick and timber, others with memory and bone. Vexley was the latter, and Eleanor had become its beating heart. The vial shattered on the floor, crimson liquid seeping into the roots. The vine surged, ecstatic. Dr. Vale screamed, but not from pain, from remembrance. The house groaned, the walls shifted, the conservatory bloomed violently, obsidian petals bursting through grass. The grandfather clock spun backwards, time itself unravelled, and Eleanor stood in the centre of it all, arms outstretched. The vine wrapped around her torso, her throat, her skull, but it did not consume her. It crowned her. She saw everything. Her aunt whispering lullabies to the vine, Harold smiling as he sank into its roots, and Dr. Vale kneeling, her memories bleeding into the soil. And then others, faces she didn't know, visitors, children, neighbours, all drawn to the house, all leaving something behind. The vine had grown clever. It no longer waited for grief, it cultivated it. Eleanor opened her eyes. They were black. Not black. Obsidian. She stepped into the conservatory, pulsing with life. The house was quiet and the vine slept. And outside, the sky darkened. A knock came at the door, and the child stood there wide-eyed, clutching a photograph. My mum said this house helps people. Can you help me? Eleanor reached out her hand and smiled. And behind her, the vine awoke.
And there the tale ends for now, but the echoes will always remain. If you've enjoyed your stay here in my domain, leave your mark, a review, a whisper, a 5-star sigil. Until next time, wanderers, I've been Fauna Blakewell, and you've been changed forever.